Hey, welcome to God's Plan Works channel, and I thank you for your tuning in. This is my uh, New Year's Eve message to you of encouragement. Due to some scheduling conflicts, I wasn't able to do my live broadcast on tomorrow, Saturday, so I'm pre-recording this, so I won't be able to chat with you as I would be able to do on Saturday. But I wanted to get this message out to you at New Year's Eve, Lord willing, as we prepare for the entrance of 2023. Before I get started, though, again, I ask that you, as always, would you consider hitting that thumbs up button there and subscribe, and also ring the bell that you'll be alerted future videos that we'll be producing here on my channel, God's Plan Works. And also, by the way, if you consider purchasing my book that I wrote back in 2016, Doing the Greater Work. It is the basis of what we're doing on this channel to encourage and to help us get our mind focused and right with the Lord. All right, let me jump right on in here for today's for this message for today. Unless something changes, this will be my last word for 2022, and I hope it's a blessing to you, and I believe it will be. I want to talk to you about this our New Year's Eve message, and I know many are going to be making your resolutions and plan, and I'm not trying to jump into any of that or whatever. All I want you to do is be considered. Consider some things that we're going to lay on your lap, in your mind, I believe. And that is the thought, clear and still. Lord woke me up this morning to tell you to focus on being clear and still. As I reminded of when I was young, I was very quick-tempered. Very, very quick-tempered, would explode in a minute. I mean, it was so bad that it would literally, I'd be in like a blackout. I would not know what I was doing at the time. And my dad, back in the day, he would often make me sit down in the living room, sit down in a chair, and just look at a glass of water. That he just sat down and look at this glass of water. And what he would instruct me is to sit there quietly and focus on the water in the glass. And he would say, let your thoughts become as clear and still as the water in the glass. What Dad taught me was I was capable of controlling me. And you know what? God has granted each and every one of us that same ability to control ourselves. And why is this important? It's important because, as we're winding this year down, there's many things that have happened, and I don't need to rehash all that because you know your own story. and sometimes life can get you at a point, man, where you just either I'm going to tell you a piece of my mind, or you explode, or you go in withdrawals, or you tell stuff yourself, I can't do this, I can't do that, I whatever, those kinds of things. But God has given us the power and the ability to manage and control ourselves. Recently, in fact, this lesson flashed back in my mind. We were, my wife and I and family were in Cayman Islands, and we stopped at 7 Mile Beach there on Cayman Island. And my wife, we went down and my wife was admired. I mean, she was really mesmerized and admired how clear the beach water was, even though it was cold at that time, how clear It was. And when she told me this, and she told me to go down to the water, I went down and I looked for myself, and I saw how clear that water was and came an island. It caused me to reflect back on the meditative lessons of my youth. And I want to, from that clear and still, I want to just leave some things I want you to think about as you transition, Lord willing, transition from 2022 to 2023. Here's the things I want you to keep in mind. There's the power of controlling yourself. And I'm giving you something to think about beyond the typical resolutions that we make, something that's going to help manage and direct our lives day by day as we go forward. In fact, this observation, there's a saying by a great philosopher, if you will, by the name of Confucius. And Confucius he made a lot of famous statements, but this is one sticks to my mind that I want to share with you. He said, "He who conquers himself is the mightiest warrior." Confucius said this, "He who conquers himself is the greatest warrior." Thousands of years later, you'll find this same thought process recorded in Proverbs 16:32 to be exact. You can read it for yourself. The proverbial statement, the writer of Proverbs, Solomon said this, "He that is slow to anger is better than the mighty." He that is slow to anger is better than the mighty. He goes on to say, "And that rules his spirit than he that taketh a city." Again, he that rules himself is mightier than he that taketh a city. And so these two thoughts that I want to leave on your mind to think about and ponder over for moving forward into 2023 is this: a clear mind and a still mind. If you learn to master this, all of these other resolutions and stuff that you're going to find life, no matter what's thrown at us in 23, we will have the ability to master and control ourselves. If you really want to make the devil angry at you, not only is when you can control you, because he's always doing things to tempt us to get outside of us so we can say, "See, nah, I told you," that kind of thing. And if you really want to make those who don't like you, really upset with you, master yourself. In fact, a clear mind begins with the understanding it can't be achieved. One of the things that I have on a daily basis, there's so many thoughts flooding through my mind, in and out, this talk, this thing, that I literally have to sometimes I have to tell my own self, "Shut up. It's just too much, just too much." And so you have to understand that you have the ability to control your own thoughts. In fact, here's what James chapter 1, read it on your own, verse 5. It says, "If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives in all liberally and without reproach, and it will be given to him." So if you need understanding, I'm going to get to that word understanding in a minute. You need clarity. I'm going to get that word too. There's 3 words that I'm going to leave on your heart: understanding, clarity, and peace. If you want to know how about anything, ask God about it, James 1:5. But also, Jesus taught an approach in Matthew 6:6. And some of you who have been students of me, these are several of my favorite scriptures. But Matthew 6:6 says, "But you," in other words, I'm talking about you now. I'm not talking about Jesus. I'm not talking about other people. I'm talking about you who follow me. You who are followers of Jesus. He says, "But you," when you pray, here's what you do. You go into your room, and that room is into yourself, into that secret place within you. It said, and when you, that is when you can shut your thoughts of what's going on in the outside world, worrying about 22, worrying about what's happening 23, shut all that out. He says, and when you have shut the door, then he says, pray to your Father who is in the secret place. So there is a place, and it's like I said, you carry the church wherever you go. You may not be able to make it to, if you have to go to a brick and mortar place, you may not always be able to make it there. And you don't have to make it there. But there is a place everywhere you go, you have church in you. You can meet in your secret, quiet place. Don't tell me about it. Oh, I don't know. I can't do that, Pastor. Yes, you can. You do it all the time. Who's talking to you when them thoughts are going through your head and ain't nobody around and you just and you looking at smiling somebody, but your mind who are you talking to? You're talking to you. There's something going on the inside of you. And Jesus said, when you get into that secret, quiet place, he says, he talked to you, tell your Father. And he said, now watch this. He says, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you openly. In other words, there are things that you don't need to talk to anybody about but God. You talk to the Lord about it. You go to him in secret prayer about it. Not just yak, but listening to him, because he who sees in secret will reward you openly. That's important. I talk to you, that's having a clear mind. That means you must first, whatever is going to happen in 23, start out with a clear mind, which I said it begins with understanding that you can achieve this. A lot of times we're going to many people for solutions to problems when the answer to every problem you have is within you. Oh, you hearing me today? Second is a still mind. I talked about a clear mind. Now I want to talk about a still mind. A still mind grants us three things. I told you I was going to get to these three. A still mind grants us three things. 1, understanding. 2, peace. And 3, clarity. We'll talk about those 3 words in a second. See, when our mind is all cluttered up, man, we get frustrated. And when you get frustrated, you get short-tempered, you get impatient, you get angry, you make bad choices, basically, when you get frustrated. So we want to have a still mind, calm our minds down day by day, moment by moment, so that we're able to get through whatever we need to get through, so that we have a clarity, clearness. And in fact, look at these 3 words that I just told you about. Understanding. Look at the biblical, in some of these verses you'll be familiar with. Understanding, because when you have a still mind, you can gain understanding. Here's what Psalmist wrote in Psalms 46 and 10. Again, those of you who've been my students of mine, you know these are some of my favorite verses. Psalms 46:10 says, "Be still." In other words, you can't get the answer to your problems when your mind is racing like a Indy 500. You got to calm it down, number one, and be still. He said, be still and know that I am God. And he says, I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. Psalms 46. And then I also encourage you to read Proverbs 4 and 7. Proverbs 4 and 7. Read that as well with that text. Listen to what Jeremiah said about this stillness, about understanding. Jeremiah said this in Jeremiah 33, verse 3. Says this. I hope you have you open up your Bibles and read along with me. Here's what he said. Call to me. This is what the Lord is saying. Call to me and I will answer. Now watch this. Not only will I answer, he says, I'll show you great and mighty things which you do not know. Oh God. So if you want understanding, go to God. He'll give you that still mind. So you'll know, you see, the most powerful thing you have is knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. When you gain that, you know what steps to take and how to take them. Not only that, the stillness of mind will give you peace. How many times have you made decisions at a moment of anger, frustration, or rage, or said something, because at that moment you just had enough and you blew. Only to later on, it's man, wow, I lost it. I shouldn't have. I lost control. That can happen. We're humans. It happens to all of us. But peace comes, according to Isaiah 26 and verse 3. It says this: you will, the Psalms, the prophets talking about God, you will keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on you, because he trusts in you. In other words, the person who trusts God. So as you're going into 23, trust God no matter what. And I know it's hard. I'm not talking to you like somehow I mastered all this. No. But one thing I do know, in the short tenure I've been on this planet, and God has given me breath to live, it's been indoctrinated into me by my mom and my dad. Trust God. Sometimes, man, when I get off, and sometimes I almost beat myself up because I stopped trusting God, put dependence in me or somebody else, and wish I hadn't done that. So I'm encouraging you, trust God. And when you trust God, He will give you the peace that passes all understanding. But not only will you gain from a still mind, will you gain understanding. And not only will you gain peace from a still mind, but thirdly, you will gain clarity. Clarity. In other words, listen to the psalmist in Psalms 32, verse 8. Here's what he says: I will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go. I will guide you with my eye. Here's what also you want clarity. Also read this in Isaiah 30, verse 21. It says this: your ears shall hear a word behind you, saying, this is the way, walk in it. Wherever you turn, he says, to the right hand or to the left. In other words, when we seek God and we get a still mind so we can hear the voice of the Spirit guiding us and directing us, we will make no error. I'm going to drop this in your nugget, then I got to go. And it's right there in Psalms 37, verse 23. It said, and you probably, those of you who are Bible students, you may be familiar with this verse. This says, the steps of a good man or a righteous man are ordered of the Lord. In other words, they're ordered of the Lord because that righteous man is listening to the voice of God, speaking to him, say, go left, go right, go straight, stand still. And when we're following the direction and the leadership of the Spirit, the Spirit will always guide us in the way that we should go. In other words, I read this some many years ago. It really hit me when I was about this verse. Wait a minute. I don't have to worry about, should I do this? Should I do that? Should I do that? All I have to do is just focus on just listening. If I learn to listen to the voice of the Spirit and then follow the Spirit's guidance, He will direct my path. He will guide me where I need to go. Because once I get into looking at my eyes see circumstances and I will deem them and classify them, interpret them as impossible. But when God is directing your path, follow the voice of the Lord. No matter what valley, what mountain, what hill, what obstacles you go through, listen clearly. Get the clarity that He will give you, and then follow what He tells you to do. 3 things I want to advise you of as we get ready to leave from this, and I got to go. And I hope this lesson will help you in your journey from 22, your transition from 22 to 23, if it be the Lord's will. Advice number 1, consider this. Enter into 2023, with a clear mind. In other words, let 2022 go. Let it go. Do not take anything of as much as possible, anything of 2022 into 2023. You have to let it go. In other words, but do what Paul said. I forget those things that are behind and I press forward. Even if pain, loss, whatever, we've all gone through our own things in 22. 22 has not been an easy year for a lot of people. But I'm here to advise you and just for you to consider. The Lord will take you through. He brought you through 22. If you should see it, he brought you through it. So if he brought you through it, he'll take you on the next leg of this journey in 2023. Secondly, practice. In other words, what I just told you, and you go back and you prayerfully consider what I just said to you. Practice each day, 10 to 20 minutes a day. That's all you got to do. You got 24 hours a day. If you can find 10 to 20 minutes out of a whole day, practice being mentally clear and still as the glass of water meditation my dad taught me. And literally, I'm saying literally, take a glass of water, sit it on somewhere, or you could do this wherever. You can do this on your job. Just have a clear glass of water, sit there and meditate on that glass. Let your thoughts be as clear as the water in the glass and as still as that water is in the glass. And as you do this, you begin to get understanding, you begin to get peace, and you begin to get clarity about whatever circumstances that you're going on in. And then once you do this for a measure of time, you can mentally go and see that glass anytime. You're getting frustrated, you're getting all upset, you can see that glass where you can just breathe and bring yourself down. Third thing, allow God's peace to regulate your inner being. Notice I said allow. God's not going to do anything for you that you won't allow him to. In other words, he's not going to force himself on us in most cases. But when you allow, Lord, in effect, again, my students, there's another one of my favorite verses. Again, you hear me repeat this a lot. He said, let the peace of God rule your spirit. In other words, when your inner person becomes all upset, angry, depressed, mad, you can't see, pray this prayer. You'll find this in Colossians 3, verse 15. And it says, let the peace of God rule your heart. Why is that important? Because I didn't go into all of that before, but it just popped in my mind, so let me drop this nugget in your heart. Jesus made a statement in the gospel in one of his teachings. He says, my peace I leave unto you, not like the world. Now let that resonate inside your inner being. There is a peace that God has, not like the world. It's deeper than any quote unquote peace that the world can offer you. He says, let God's peace, which is higher than any peace you can know. And Paul, I may mention this in one of his writings, I believe it's in Philippians 4, I believe, maybe verse 6, 7, or 8 in that block, I believe. And he says, and the peace of God that passes all understanding will keep you. In other words, having peace does not mean you know every little dot and tittle of your circumstance. But before you can get clarity, you have to calm down. And so, in other words, in order to calm your spirit, you have to allow the peace of God to rule your spirit. And then allow God's presence. Remember, going back to Matthew 6:6, get into the presence of God. Let his presence keep your mind in perfect peace. And when your mind wants to drift on your troubles or problems or whatever, or your mind wants to drift back in 2022, say no. This is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice in it. In it, I will keep my mind in that day, that moment. In fact, break it down. This exercise I'm telling you, break it down by a moment. Don't try to break the whole 24 hours, try to grab in the whole, get peace for 20. No, one moment at a time. Begin to get what I just laid to you. Get clear, have a clear and peace of mind. And so I just wanted to thank you for this, allowing me to give you this short lesson. See, the end result of what we're sharing with you on this last message for 2022, if it be the Lord's will, is resolutions will become unnecessary. You won't have to make no resolutions. Your only resolve is to get clarity of mind, that is to have a clear mind and a still mind. If you focus on having a clear mind and a still mind, all the answers that you need and guidance that you need will begin to bubble from the inside of you. And remember what Confucius told you, he who conquers himself is the mightiest warrior. Proverbs told you, he who is slow to anger, is stronger than a mighty city. You those things that I told you earlier, begin to practice them. The end result, as I said, will not be, resolutions won't be necessary. Secondly, a consistent way of life will be established. When we begin to focus on getting a clear and still mind, it will constitute a way of life. In other words, this is just the way you will live. You'll be able to learn to live in such a way because you know how to still your mind. You know how to still get clarity of your spirit and mind so that you know what decisions to make. You know what directions to go. You know what to do. You know how to be, he'll tell you sometimes, the Lord will tell you, be still. Just stand still. Don't do nothing. I got this. Then sometimes he'll tell you, move. Sometimes he'll tell you, get your weapon in your hand, be ready to do battle. Whatever he directs you and guides you, and you clearly understand the voice of God. Now, don't get me twisted here. You authorize me? No, I ain't said none of that. You get clarity. How do I know when the Lord speaks? That's for another lesson. I'll go back through that lesson later, but you can know. Because we have the guarantee from Christ, you can know. He says, my sheep hear my voice, and another they will not know. See, the more you practice what I just shared with you, practice getting clarity of mind, stilling the mind, the more you'll begin to understand. You'll enter into the silence, and you'll begin to hear God's still, small, quiet voice speaking to you. Thirdly, not only will resolutions not be necessary, now it will constitute a way of life, but it'll also, in other words, it'll give you an attitude. In other words, your attitude will shift. Whatever you're going through in 2022, in 23, your attitude, it'll influence your 2023 attitude. By what? By challenging you. In other words, it will challenge you. Once you focus on getting a clear and still mind, and as you develop this, you constitute a way of life, you begin to say to circumstances in your life, you'll say it. You know what? None of these things will move me. Not that you're arrogant, not that you all that a bag of chips. No. It's because you know where your help comes from. You know where your strength comes from. Many years ago, I believe it was if I recall, I think it was a president out of Morehouse College that said, the one that outthinks you rules you. The one outthinks you rules you. So you and I must focus on getting our mind. When I talk about your mind, your thoughts, your inner soul, your inner being, at one with God, at one with the Lord. And when you're at one with Him, your path will become clearer for you. So, hey, I thank you for allowing me, and again, I apologize for not being able to have a live session, again, with conflict in my schedule. But I'm going to put this broadcast, I will put this out on New Year's Eve, even though this is a pre-recording. Again, until our next video, as always, may God continue to bless you. May His peace be upon you, and may His grace and mercy follow you forever. So if you would be so kind just smash that thumbs up button, subscribe for me, and also hit that bell so you'll be reminded of upcoming videos that will be coming, Lord willing, in 2023. So until then, may God bless you, and may He keep you, and may you have a wonderful, pleasant, and happy and prosperous New Year. See you in the next video.